preaching on Radio Christian Voice. This is dedicated to the broken.
Dumping spirit, overwhelmed with life and everything in between. Tune in to Nightlight with Kunda every week from Monday to Friday from 21 hours to midnight for a refreshing word, inspirational music, and just what you need to be encouraged. Nightlight, to lighten up your spirit.
Esta banda, yo sé no, esta postea always people say I miss the program. Understand what?
This is the sound you hear when it's just ordinary radio. This is what you hear when it's our sound. What can we say? Radio Christian Voice has the best sound in the country. Radio Christian Voice, the home since 94. When we stop dreaming, we stop breathing. Dreams play an important role in our lives. As many figures in the Bible are saints who have been visited by God during their sleep. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brother.
Listen, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me.
Welcome to Understanding Your Dreams, presented by Pastor Peter Kansembe from Praise Christian Center. This program has been tailor-made so that you can determine how much attention to pay to the meaning of your dreams. The dream is for the dreamer. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Understanding Your Dreams. This is Peter Kansembe from Praise Christian Center. Once again, I bring to you greetings from our Bishop, Dr. Ed Kansembe. As usual, we start by reading from Proverbs chapter 33 and verse 14. The Bible reads, "For God may speak in one way or in another way, yet man does not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men while slumbering on their beds, then he opens the ears of man and seals their instruction, in order to turn man from his deed, and to conceal pride from man, and to keep back his soul from the pit, and his life from perishing by the sword." In Job chapter 32 and verse 8, it says, "But there is a spirit in man, and the breath of the Almighty gives him understanding." So God desires to communicate with man. He desires to communicate with you and me. And one of those ways in which God does communicate to us is through dreams. And so dreams can reach anybody. He has reached kings. He has reached people like you and me, Mary and Joseph, through dreams. And so God can give a very clear message to us. And as we begin in this program for today, we are going to look at themes in dreams. So every dream has a theme. And before we just delve into that, I want to remind you that there are 4 sources of dreams. A dream can come from God. A dream can come from your soul or from the activities of your life. A dream can come from the enemy. And the dream can come from the environment. Like it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 3, it says that from the busyness or the activities of the day, a dream can come. And so one of the good things that we know is that God knows what is in the darkness, for the light dwells with him. So whether a dream came from him or from any other source, God can communicate to you. And so as we look at this program, one of the things is to help us hear the voice of God in dreams, or to understand. Remember that interpretation is from God, and yet we must pursue and seek out. It's the pleasure of God to hide a mystery, and kings must search it out. And that is what we do on this program, to help you search out and seek God and hear from him what he's saying. So we are looking at themes and backgrounds and settings. So themes are like a context. Themes are like atmospheres. themes are frames. So if you look at many pictures, especially when there is a wedding, somebody is getting married or graduating, like Kunda, you find that they get the best spot in a place, and then they get that picture, and maybe there are flowers, and for those who love the Goma Lakes behind, it's one of those things. So the background tells the story. So normally you would want to get a picture or your wedding at church or some spot that really drives the message, emphasizes the message. And so we see that themes set the tone for the dreams. And so you notice that every dream has a theme. A theme is like a frame, a picture frame, or it's like an emphasis, something that will be emphasized. What is the message that is going to be communicated? The theme is also like a frame, something that you must pay attention to. For example, if you are watching your favorite sport, whether it's football or any other movie on television, once you set your eyes on the set, it means you become more or less blind to the things that are in the room, because your eyes are so focused on that frame. So a dream seems to create a frame or a context that blocks you out from all the other activities or thoughts that are in your heart, to bring out the main message that God wants to communicate with you. So themes also relate to the discussion or the subject of the matter, what is going to be addressed. So you will notice that as we look at themes, you must be able to skim through your dream and look at what are the main points. Of course, you may take note of the details, but every dream has a main point. So for example, you can see a newly wedded couple, maybe they are posing by the high court. The high court is not the main theme, although it may be a good frame in the background. The main theme is that they are getting married. So you can see the cars, the flowers, but the main point is that two people are getting married. And so you must be able to look at the frame and isolate the main point in your dreams, because there are times that a person may want to explain every detail and interpret every detail, and that may not be the whole focus of the message, but it's just a background that is being set. For example, if you go into a classroom, especially in our days, maybe even this time, if you find the teacher has written mathematical formulas on the board, you will know that we are going to discuss maths. If you find the map of Zambia or Africa, you know that it's a geography class. The teacher may be the same, but the subject has changed. And so you see that these themes seem to address or highlight what exactly the dream will be addressing. Themes also come from atmospheres that are created in a dream. For example, there may be atmospheres of laughter. Somebody might say, I had a dream, I was laughing. Another one might say, I had a dream, I was crying, but I was happy as I was crying. So maybe the crying was producing tears of joy. Others may be crying because there was sorrow or pain, and others may be crying because there was an atmosphere of sadness that was created in that dream. So you know that that is also a frame that is being created, and it's creating a context through which you are seeing this dream. And so those things are important, because a number of people just send a message and say, I had a dream, I saw a dog. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything, because you haven't given the context. Was the dog eating? Were you leading the dog? Was it your dog? Was it somebody's dog? Was it barking at you, or is it following you? So if you just say, I saw it, it really means nothing, because you have not given the context, you have not given the picture. So all those details are very important. So I'll give an example of common dreams in the Bible, and you see that as they were interpreted, you can still see that there is a theme that was hidden in the message. And though the final message came from God with great clarity, you can see that even before the interpretation came, there is a picture that was being laid out. And we want to look at, for example, we start at Genesis chapter 41. Genesis 41, and then we'll go to 40. That's a dream that Pharaoh had. Now, if you look at the dream that Pharaoh had in Genesis 41, he said he had a dream, and in the first dream, he saw these 7 cows or cattle coming out of the river now, and they were healthy, they were good, they were strong. And then in the next dream, the next picture of the dream, he sees these ugly, thin cows. They also come out of the river now, and they swallow up all the other 7. That is the first frame that we have. The second one is that he says that in this second one, he sees a stalk of wheat that had 7 stalks or grains, and they were very healthy. And then 7 ugly ones that were scorched by the east wind, they also came up and swallowed the good ones. Now, if you look at the theme, even before we go to the interpretation that Joseph had or delivered in this dream that God gave him, you can see that a picture has been formed, a frame has been formed, a theme has been created. The first thing that we see is talking about agriculture. It's talking about a harvest. It's talking about a poor harvest or a destroyed harvest. Now, agriculture is the economic life of Egypt or a nation, the economic life of a family. And so we are seeing that in the first one, he is seeing happy, very nice, prosperous cattle. And then in the next one, he's seeing sickly, weak, bad and ugly. And the first one is happy to see, the next one is terrible, especially that it swallows up the other things. So just by looking at this dream, you will see that the first ones are showing the prosperity, the success, and the later picture is showing the poverty and all that goes with it. So we see that just by looking at that dream, even before he says that these are 7 years of plenty and 7 years of lack, you already see that there seems to be a picture of sadness and happiness that is there in that dream. And that's why Pharaoh is troubled and he has to ask the magicians to come and interpret. And so just from the progression, you can see that it's hanging between something good and something bad. And so in your dream, when you look at the whole context, you look at the whole theme, it will already paint a picture of what is going on. And then finally, when Joseph delivers the verdict, God tells him, these are 7 years of plenty, 7 years of lack. Therefore, look for a man who will give you the wisdom to save for the 7 years of lack. The final meaning comes, and yet you see that the context has already been established. And so this is mainly the way that dreams come. And so if you were Pharaoh, for example, looking at these dreams, it means that the prayer points have already been raised. Lord, what is the meaning of these 7 good cows? What is the meaning of these 7 ugly cows? Because you can already see that there is something that is not good and there is something that is also good, but the bad is eating up that which is good. And so a context is made and you begin to seek God from there. If you look at Genesis chapter 40, it's another interesting set of dreams. Again, you will see the same pattern flowing. And as you begin to apply this to your lives, you begin to see that in your dreams, the same pattern will begin to emerge. If you look at Genesis 40, for example, and verse 5, there is the story of the butler and the baker. The butler was the chief servant in the house of Pharaoh. He was in prison with the baker. We don't know what they did, but they were in prison with Joseph. And one day they both had dreams. And when Joseph woke up, he looked at them and he said, "Why are you sad? Why are your countenances cast down?" And then they said, "We each had a dream and we could not understand the dreams." And then Joseph said, "Tell me the dream. Interpretation belongs to God." In other words, I will hear your dream, I will talk to the Lord about it, and I'll give you an answer. So he was confident in God to understand and to reveal mystery. So look at now the dream of the butler. He sees a vine, and that vine has 3 branches, and then from the 3 branches there are clusters. The clusters are pressed in a cup, and from there he hands over the cup to Pharaoh. Now, if you look at the progression of that dream, you will see how it's very much similar to the first one. Firstly, a vine. I like the symbols that are used in these 2 dreams. You will notice that symbols are timeless. He uses the vine, and for the baker, he uses bread. And you remember Jesus said, "I am the vine, you are the branches." And then also at the Last Supper, you have the fruit of the vine and the bread. That's what really makes it interesting for me. The symbols have run throughout the ages. So now, if you look at these, the 3 branches of the vine, the scripture says they budded. In other words, they are prospering. They have shown life. And then the next portion of that dream says they blossomed and brought forth clusters. So this dream that the butler has, it is progressing with positivity. It is seeing that something has budded, it is full of life. The next stage, it has blossomed. Not only blossomed, it has brought forth fruit, and that fruit has been pressed in a cup, and the cup is served. To Pharaoh. It's like you are in your place, serving again, and then Pharaoh receives this cup. This is very, very interesting. In other words, whatever he was going to offer, Pharaoh received it. It has a positive outlook. But because he's in prison, he's worried, he's scared. What can this mean? When you look at the other one, the baker's dream, this one is not progressing with positivity, and you will see how it unfolds. And this is why I'm saying you need to pay attention to themes, how your dream is developing, and take note what is the main point. The main point is the other one has saved the Pharaoh with a cup. Take note of that one. This one says the butler hears a nice interpretation and says, I also had a dream. I had 3 baskets on my head, and they were full of all manner of baked breads or things like that. Very good things that were baked. They were baked for Pharaoh. So it is starting as if it's moving progressively well, and then suddenly it makes a turn, and it says, and the birds of the air came on my head and started eating the bread. So in this dream, you will notice that the bread that was baked and is on the head of this man is not delivered to Pharaoh. If you look at the first one, he has a cup pressed with juice. It has reached its destiny. It has been delivered to Pharaoh. This other man, it is not delivered to Pharaoh, and the vultures or the birds of the air have eaten what was in that cup. And when something is eating from your head, it is not very good. And so here, when you look at the dream, Joseph now interprets according to what the Lord says to him. He says, these 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, you will be restored to your position as the chief servant. This other man, his service is not restored to the Pharaoh because his bread does not reach the Pharaoh. It is eaten away by the birds of the air. So you can see that it has progressed in the negative tone. And then finally he says that this bread you shall be hanged on a tree, though there were no trees in that dream. This is the mystery that God brings in. And then he says that the birds shall eat your flesh. And this is why I said these 2 dreams are so fascinating, because when Jesus breaks the bread, he says, this is the cup of my blood, and this bread is my body or my flesh. So you can see right from the time of Joseph, the bread is significant of the flesh. And so it's interesting, if you have those dreams, there is that cup of the vine, and there is the flesh. It is something to think about. Scripture has given us so many symbols. So that I really find interesting. So these 2 dreams, you can see 2 frames, 2 themes are created. One is moving progressively positive, the other one is moving progressively negatively. And then we look at another dream. These 2 will do by way of summary. If you look at the dreams that are in, for example, Daniel chapter 2, that's the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. In that dream, he saw this idol. And this idol, of course, they worshipped idols as their gods and things like that, power and authority. But then when Daniel interprets it, he says, these are governments and you are the head of God. And right up from the head down to the feet is talking about successive governments in different stages. And so you see that the dream also had a theme. It was addressing nations, governments, kingdoms, and all that. And so this is why I'm saying that you need to pay attention. What is the picture being created? What is being communicated? What is the central message? If you go in in Daniel chapter 4, this is the dream that the king had a very huge tree in the middle of the earth. It was so big, all the birds of the air were coming to it, and it was such a comfortable tree, very influential. And then the angel said, cut it down, but do not remove it from the ground. And then again there you see that there is a theme. It is something that is great, something that is prosperous, something that everyone is relying on, the birds of the air. The leaves around it. Leaves are like nations, peoples. Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. The many people relying on it. but it is cut down, something that is great. So even though that he did not know that it's talking about him, the theme has already been painted before, and that's why it troubles him, because he sees this magnificent tree, this awesome tree, this beautiful thing. Suddenly an angel says, cut it down, and it is cut down, and he's wondering, why was that great tree cut down? Why was that precious tree cut down? Why was that awesome tree cut down? And then the message comes to him and says, you, O king, are that tree. You have grown, you are big, all the nations of the earth, they count on you, they are looking to you, but now you have become proud. And if you do not humble yourself, God will humiliate you, cut you down. So now humble yourself. And the king humbled himself for 1 year. At the end of 12 months, he said, oh, I am great. I've built this kingdom and everything. And immediately an angel came from heaven and said, cut down the tree. So again, you see in that dream, it was a great tree, marvelous tree, prosperous tree, but it is cut down and left, meaning that there is a second chance given to it. And so you begin to see that there are themes, there are atmospheres that are created in dreams. So it's not sufficient to just say, I had a dream there was a car. It means absolutely nothing. Maybe the car was in a gravel road, then it has some meaning. The car was stuck in the mud. Maybe now we are beginning to see a picture. So if there was mud, there was water. If, like we say, a car normally represents your life. So if the car was stuck in the mud, why was it stuck in the mud? Maybe the driver was careless. He moved from the tarmac and he drove into the mud, and so he's stuck. So the meaning can come. You had a firm way in which you were walking. Your life was just progressing very well, but maybe you were diverted by looking at things that you should not be looking at. And by being diverted from the firm, stable road, you have now found your life stuck in the mud. That way it has a meaning. But when you just say that I had a dream, there was a car, it means absolutely nothing. So you need to look at the context, see the picture, what is the frame, what is the atmosphere, and then when you see that, that's when now you can bring to God, Lord, I understand these symbols from your word, or I don't understand them, what is the meaning of this dream? So now we'll take one good look at one example, just to help us. I will illustrate with one. Many people talk about dreaming they are in a family house. Maybe they grew up in that house. Maybe it was their father's house. Maybe it was their mother's house. We don't know whose house it is. But they talk about being in a family house where they were born. So now let us look at house. When the Bible, when God addresses Abraham, he talks about Abraham and his house, Jacob and his house, David and his household, Eli and his household. So now, just from picking up that word, a household, people belonging to one house or one family. So we know that a family house will normally talk about the family. It may talk about the head of the family, or it may talk about the members of the family. But if you just say, I dreamt a house, it is absolutely irrelevant, because we don't know what house you are talking about. But if you give details, it was my house, my father's house, my uncle's house, my grandfather's house, then it has a context. So it may be talking about your family. It may be talking about the clan. It may be talking about everybody born from that household. And then the circumstances of that house begin to paint the picture that is being addressed. So we can see, is it progressing negatively or positively? For example, somebody can say that I always dream I'm working in that house, I'm cleaning toilets, I'm being humiliated. So maybe it is something that is being addressed concerning that background, concerning that family, that is humiliating your life. There are others that say that I always dream I'm stuck in my father's house. It could be that you are stuck in issues concerning the family, stuck in family issues. Of course, there are other things as we look at. Some things deal with cases. There are cases that dwell on families. Some families, for example, are given to witchcraft. Others are given to drunkenness. Others are given to sexual immorality. So you can find that somebody may see themselves always in their father's house, because maybe they have been given over to a sin that is predominant in their father's house. And by dreaming of that father's house, it is saying, address this issue in your father's house. So for example, when Gideon is addressed by the angel, the Lord tells him, go and destroy the idol in your father's house. Then revival and restoration will come to Israel. He addresses something in the father's house. So sometimes when you are having that dream of a family house, God is calling your attention to something. Some people have dreams there in their family houses, and they are seeing lions, they are seeing leopards, they are seeing wild animals. That is already telling you that in your family line, there are demonic structures or wrong spirits that are terrorizing people. There are others say that I always see myself in the cattle crow of our family house. They are always serving in the field, but when they work hard in their natural life, nothing ever works. So again, you may see that they may be hindered, they may be pushed back, they may be held by covenants that are in their father's houses, wrong covenants. It may be that you dream you're in the father's house and it's always dark. Let me call it family house. Or the walls in that family house are broken. Maybe relationships are broken. Maybe things are broken down. Things that don't just work out. So all those things, if you look at Deuteronomy 28, I'm referring to, they're talking about cases. They're talking about being humiliated, things being destroyed. Or you just see that doors are broken, windows are broken. All those things are pointing to a negativity. So you know that there is something around the family that must be addressed. But it's not always negative. Some people have dreams, their family farms are prospering, they are watering, and things are going on well. Maybe you need to reconnect to the inheritance so that that inheritance may prosper, because a family house may be an inheritance that is maybe neglected, but it may be made to prosper by paying attention to it and bringing it into the places that it needs to be. So sometimes the progression is negative, but sometimes the progression is positive as well. So you need to pay attention to the theme, because it is telling you the story in your dream. And then if you notice, most of the time, people in our societies, in the places where they are born, that's where umbilical cords are planted, that's where rituals are done. Sometimes things for protection are done where people do not believe in God. So again, you find that where those things have happened, people are always dreaming they are in that father's house, they are in that family house, or they are in that, or next to that tree that is next to the father's house. And they never seem to understand why they always dream they are next to a tree. Maybe they were named and things were done, tattoos were put on them, umbilical cords were buried under the tree, and this person always dreams they are sitting under a particular tree in that family house. And maybe it's telling you that you need to pray and disconnect yourself from these things, from these rituals, from these enchantments that were done, because it is telling you about an atmosphere of slavery. Or others just see birds from their father's house coming to steal from them. So that can be a context. So again, like I've said, a context can be a church. We can move away from the father's house. The theme can be about a church. Some people say that somebody actually sent a dream and said they dreamt the church was full of feces. Now, that's the first time I heard that dream. But if you remember from the other lessons that we have talked about, in Ezekiel, it clearly tells us that if a person has those dreams, like Ezekiel in chapter 4, he's told to prepare food, to prepare bread on human feces. And then he says, Lord, I have never defiled myself from the time I was young. So how can I cook food on human dung? This will defile my soul. So Ezekiel in chapter 4, he refuses. So now let's get that context and apply that dream that somebody sent in. So the context is a church. The church is full of human dung. Then if the church is full of human dung, according to Ezekiel, we know that that is defilement. So the question is, why would a church be filled with defilement? So now you begin to look at the things that are happening in church. For example, if you go in 1 Samuel, you will find that the Bible talks about Eli and his sons. And God spoke to Samuel and said, I'm going to punish Eli for the sins he knew about. Because the sons of Eli were abusing the offerings of God. They would just get the offerings, mistreat the people. They were sleeping with all the women that were serving at the house of the Lord. So there was great sexual immorality. They dishonored God. And so the house of God was defiled. So now if a person has this type of a dream where they go to church and it is full of human waste, then you know that God is calling my attention to something. Is there something we are doing in our congregation that is dishonoring God? Are we abusing the people? According to the story of in 1 Samuel, Is there sexual immorality in church? Are there lies? Are there things that are happening? Like Jesus came to the temple and beat out everybody. Are there money changers? Maybe it has become a business house, an opportunity just for making financial gains. All those things will represent a defilement. So it is an interesting dream, but if you'd have a dream where the church is full of human waste, then something is seriously going on wrong in that particular place. And now, Lord, you come to the Lord and you say, Lord, where have we sinned? Where have we defiled your work? Because the theme and the context is not clear. I mean, it's not nice. But if you went to church, it was swept, it was nice, it is looking clean, well perfumed, you know that perfume will represent the fragrance of the Spirit, the good fragrance of the Lord. And so in this program, what we've been doing is to try to build your interest in recording your dreams properly, looking at the themes and looking at the issues that are there. Remember, in a dream, there will be a main point. Not everything may be a main detail, but record the theme and it will bring clarity as to what the Lord is addressing in your life. So until the next time, this is Peter Kansembe from Praise Christian Center. You may like my page on Facebook, Peter Kansembe, Understanding Dreams, or you may send in your questions by text or WhatsApp to 0961 500512, 0961 500512, and we'll be more than glad to assist you. Until the next time, Shalom.
You have been listening to